Welcome to this explainer. We're diving into the incredibly complex, frankly, fascinating history of Sierra Leone. For way too long, the outside world has just looked at this West African nation through a lens of simple tragedy. But today, we're completely shifting that narrative. We're going to dive deep into the historical record to understand Sierra Leone's enduring resilience, tracing exactly how it got to where it is today and where it's heading next.
So here's our roadmap for today. We're looking at 1. The paradox of Sierra Leone. 2. From trade to colony. 3. Independence and authoritarianism. 4. The decade of civil war. 5. Recovery and modern challenges. And finally, 6. Culture, youth, and future. It's a journey spanning over 500 years of sociopolitical history, a really brutal civil conflict, right up to the modern socioeconomic reality of the nation. Let's get into it. Section 1. The paradox of Sierra Leone. Contrasting immense wealth with systemic poverty. How does a nation that is absolutely packed with diamonds and gold become one of the poorest on Earth? Seriously, it's the central question we're unpacking today as we trace the historical threads, the colonial legacies, and the internal conflicts that actually answer it. Because Sierra Leone doesn't just have diamonds and gold. The land is literally full of iron ore, bauxite, and rutile. It's fundamentally a massively resource-rich nation. And yet, the vast majority of the population survives on less than $2 a day. So how do those two extremes even coexist? To really get that, we have to look at the social fabric that holds the nation together despite these huge economic fractures. Now, despite those economic divides, look at what unifies them. Krio. The country is incredibly diverse. You've got ethnic groups like the Temne, Mende, and Limba, all speaking their own native dialects. But Krio acts as this incredibly powerful baseline of cultural resilience and unity. It actually started as a contact language among resettled, emancipated slaves. And today, it's understood by 95% of the population. It's truly the social glue of the nation. Section 2. From trade to colony, mapping the roots of inequality. Way before Europeans arrived, indigenous societies were already running vast trade networks, with Temne farmers settling the Freetown area by the 14th century. Fast forward a bit to 1787, and the British founded Freetown specifically as a settlement for emancipated slaves, often called re-captives. Then, in 1808, it's officially designated a British Crown colony, as the British pivoted from the slave trade to imperial trade, basically exploiting the hinterland for agricultural goods like palm oil. But here's where things get complicated. The British administered this new territory by creating a really deep systemic divide. Freetown itself was put under direct rule, which meant educational progress and civic development for the coastal elite. The hinterland, though, placed under indirect rule. The British governed that area through local chiefs, establishing a ton of systemic prejudices against non-Freetown Africans. And that physical and political division by colonial policymakers set up profound, lingering historical resentments. Section 3. Independence and authoritarianism. The descent into systemic collapse. Okay, so following a brief flash of democratic hope after independence in 1961, the country essentially fell off a cliff. Under Siaka Stevens and his APC party, from 1967 to 1985, we see the systematic, almost calculated dismantling of democratic accountability and civil society. The government actually forced savings onto the peasantry, which, understandably, caused farmers to just withdraw from the formal domestic market altogether. State offices basically turned into patronage gifts, handed out along personal and ethnic lines. The result? A massive economic decline that absolutely paved the way for total state collapse. Section 4. The decade of civil war. Ideology versus brutal reality. So from 1991 to 2002, Sierra Leone was completely torn apart by an insurgency started by the Revolutionary United Front, or the RUF. Now, the RUF initially led with a super powerful populist slogan, "Put power back in the hands of the people." The insurgency's leaders integrated modern political concepts into their ideology. They used this rhetoric to appeal to a deeply disenfranchised population, specifically rural youths who were just suffering under a corrupt, crumbling state system. But as we know, that ideological rhetoric almost immediately gave way to horrific realities on the ground. The RUF's campaign was brutal. We're talking about the systematic amputation of civilians' limbs and the widespread abduction of kids to serve as child soldiers. And the war wasn't even just a political struggle anymore. It morphed into this incredibly violent contest for control over the diamond trade just to fund the insurgency. By the time it finally ended, an estimated 50,000 people had lost their lives, and the nation's infrastructure was literally in ruins. Section 5. Recovery and Modern Challenges. Confronting the aftermath of conflict. 1,360. That's the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. To put that into perspective, it gives Sierra Leone the highest maternal mortality ratio in the entire world. It's a direct, devastating legacy of decades of underfunding, the literal destruction of clinics during the war, and a massive loss of human capital. And beyond the maternal health crisis, the nation is dealing with a brutal combination of deficits. There is a desperate shortage of medical professionals. Like, just to give you a sense of scale, there is only one psychiatrist for every 2 million people. Think about that. Plus, unchecked mining and rapid urbanization are causing severe environmental degradation. And underlying all of this, critical infrastructure deficits that are still lingering from wartime destruction. Compounding all of that is an entirely new global challenge. 1.79 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature increase over pre-industrial levels that Sierra Leone is currently experiencing. Just for context, that is already well past the 1.5-degree upper limit established by the Paris Climate Accords. So what does a 1.79-degree increase actually look like on the ground? Well, it means intense flooding in places like Freetown. It means deadly landslides and severe crop failures. This environmental reality is an immediate, daily threat to life, to agriculture, and to future sociopolitical stability. With farmers facing completely unpredictable weather, sustainable land management isn't just an option anymore. It's an absolute urgent necessity. Section 6. Culture, Youth, and Future. The Forces of National Revitalization. 13%. That's the current youth employment rate in the country. It is a dangerously low figure, especially for a nation experiencing a massive demographic youth bulge. Because when you leave young people out of the formal economy, you are basically opening the door to social exclusion and, historically speaking, potential unrest. Integrating this huge young population into sustainable development is just absolutely critical. But here's the thing. Traditional farming isn't really what the youth are looking for today. We have to focus on newer avenues, like innovative commercial agriculture and aquaculture. Plus, young people there are highly interested in tech and social media-driven job markets. Ensuring they are essentially included in national development strategies, giving them a real, tangible stake in the economy, is arguably the single most important way to prevent a cyclical return to conflict. And to secure this future, Sierra Leone is actually leveraging its past. Take the talking drums, for instance. Historically, these were symbols of wealth used to announce good catches in the fishing trade. Today, they are actively being repurposed. Because of low literacy rates in some of the more rural areas, these drums, along with local music and performance, are now a vital tool used by health workers to communicate really crucial health messages, and by civic leaders to mobilize political support. It's just a brilliant example of cultural resilience in action. This resilience is literally immortalized in the national emblem of Sierra Leone. The deep symbolism here perfectly captures the country's duality. You have the palm tree, which represents a deep, enduring aspiration for peace, and then you have the lion, representing the courage of the people in their absolute readiness to defend their homeland. Through colonialism, authoritarianism, and civil war, that courage has definitely been tested, but it is very much still there. So, with innovative agriculture, a super powerful unifying culture, and this incredible enduring resilience, can Sierra Leone's youth finally rewrite the nation's future? The data definitely shows the immense challenges they're up against, but it also reveals the incredible tools they have to actually overcome them. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.